So what I'm driving at is that you want to be Johnny being asked for by name, right, and summoned directly. And it doesn't matter what tool they use, what search bar they start with, they will eventually find you.
Advertising is a tax you pay for not being remarkable. Welcome to Todd Liles and the Wizard of Ads, a podcast for business owners who want to become remarkable. Test tube Todd Liles is going to take you deep into the mind of Roy H. Williams, the Wizard of Ads, to unleash the timeless truths and secret strategies that have helped him build dozens of America's most successful businesses. Do you want to build a brand that wins the heart, captures the mind, and creates lasting relationships? Take a deep breath and buckle up. It's time to fly.
Welcome back. This is the last of a 4-part miniseries with our guest, Jake Williams.
Glad to be here.
And Roy H. Williams. Now, if you've been following along in the other episodes that we've done prior to this, we have built the case starting with why digital isn't as effective as you think. And then we moved into the power of brand and then the power of creativity. Today, we're going to land the plane. We're going to talk about keywords and why your unbranded keyword is weak and expensive. And your branded one is powerful and very cost effective. Mm-hmm. Jake?
All right. So there's a lot of happy talk about brand building brand equity, long-term, all this stuff. How do you hold yourself accountable? How do you know if it's working, right? The thing that we always point toward is if there's a dramatic rise in branded search and you see a lot more folks looking for you by name than used to look for you, that can be attributed to the brand building that you're doing.
Good.
And so the more that people say, I have already decided that I don't want plumber near me, I want Johnny's Magnificent Plumbing, and they type Johnny's Magnificent Plumbing in, that increase is attributable to what you changed. That is to say, the brand priming that you did to make that person choose you at the time that they eventually need this. So we are absolutely paying attention to branded search as a key metric, a proxy, if you will, for the brand building that you're doing and how it'll take hold.
The only thing that AI is going to change that equation a little bit. It's only just now becoming a real factor, but over the next 12 months to 18 months, it will become a giant factor. And this is what was pointed out to me by one of the partners. They were explaining a zero click is where we're headed. And so you say, I need a hot water heater installed. Who should I call? Mm-hmm. And they ask this question. And then the AI answers you, call Johnny's Magnificent Plumbing. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't show up. That doesn't show up as a branded search because it's a zero click. Mm-hmm. Now, why did it say Johnny's Magnificent Plumbing? What AI is doing right now, the thing that they've proven, what you say about yourself and even what is said about you in your reviews is easily gamed. We all know there's techniques for getting tons and tons and tons of 5-star reviews. And guess who else knows? Who else knows that? Google. What happens right now is your AI, your Ask Engine optimization, AEO, is actually determined by what people are saying about you in cultural chatter and in forums and even on Facebook. And so what people are saying about you that you don't control and you didn't make that happen. So if you're not in the conversation, you're dinged, you're penalized. Nobody cares about you if there's no chatter about you in social media. And I'm saying one-to-one, and so Reddit right now is a big part of this. But there are other things that also factor into it. And so what other people are saying about you matters more than what you say about yourself. And so that's right now a small part. SEO is still bigger than AEO. Mm-hmm. But it's headed to where we're going to have people, because we've got a lot of chatter about them and because people are talking about them because of their fame.
Right.
It won't show up as a branded keyword. It will show up as AEO, and they will just say, who should I call? And they'll say Morris Jenkins. They'll say Johnny's
Well, it goes
Magnificent
back
Plumbing.
to what you said about the economy, right? Uh-huh. And you can have an increasingly large slice of a decreasing pie.
Right.
And so overall, we know that talking to people like Vi Wickham and Luis Castaneda, they've observed Google search is declining 30 to 50% last year
Right.
across the board.
Right.
So if you go up 10%
Right.
Year over year,
Right.
it's not a 10% gain. It's actually going to be closer to like a 40, 45% gain
Right.
when you account for the fact that fewer people are searching.
Right.
I think that problem won't last for long, though, Roy, where it doesn't show up as a non-branded keyword, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
I just saw this week where all of the marketers are really sharing all these posts. ChatGPT is getting ready to release the paid version for marketers,
Right.
where you can pay to get ChatGPT to recommend you now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's not maybe. They're like, if you go into your ChatGPT and say, "Tell me when it's available," all the marketers are ready to get in there. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we're still back to the same thing, where instead of saying, "What plumber should I use?" if we're branded, you're not going to say, "What plumber should I use?" You say, "Hey, can you get me the phone number to that guy, that Billy the doorman guy? I can't think
Thank
of."
you.
How do I get? And then it's going to recognize it. It's still going to, because they want to make money.
Okay, so
They're still gonna figure-
ChatGPT is going to do that.
Yeah, they're all going to do it.
Well,
I think
Gemini's going to do it. They're all going to do
I think
it.
Gemini's going to go slower and softer. I honestly do. We'll talk about that later.
But they'll all get there eventually, because look, people are going to follow incentives.
Maybe.
But why would they not? Why would they lose all that money?
All right. Because the guy that was running Google got fired. And guess who came back to run it? The two owners a few months ago. And that's why everything has changed. And right now, I'm going, what the heck happened at Google? It's weird. It's different. They actually seem to care again. And so I'm talking to Cedric, and Cedric, well, you know that Sergey and the other guy came back, right? And I'm
Larry Page.
really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, they fired the guy that was in shitifying Google. He was making it shittier. And they just said, no, hell no. And so they came back, fired him, took the company over.
Yeah, I don't disagree that
And
the
so what I'm saying
experience
is so
worse.
right now, they're saying, no, we're going back to our original idea. Customer is king, serve the customer. They're multi-billionaires. And they're going, no, we're going to fix the company that we created. And we were proud of it until we weren't. And now we've come back and they're there again. I'm going, so hang on a second. I'm saying those guys have motives that aren't just financial. These guys are going, nope, we have controlling interest and we're going to fix this thing to make it like we meant it to be. And I'm very excited about that. And so I'm thinking, so ChatGPT may do that, but if Google doesn't, guess what? We don't have everybody running as a herd anymore. I don't know the future, but I'm saying I have my fingers crossed. I'm hoping.
I agree. And I want to bring it back to what we've been saying throughout the prior 3 episodes as this. No one knows exactly what's going to happen in 2026 and beyond with regards to AI, the search engine results pages, all of it. What we can say is that if you completely break the experience of the search intent and you make it to where I'm looking for Johnny's Magnificent Plumbing and you won't give it to me, you're going to lose market share. Fewer people are going to use you when you say, I want Johnny.
That's my point.
And you're hiding Johnny.
If you type in a branded name, a branded chunk, and Google knows it, Gemini knows it, ChatGPT knows it, and you don't get it, you're not going to use that
system. And they can
system
fib it a little
anymore.
bit, but they can't fib it to where you can no longer find Johnny. So what I'm driving at is that you want to be Johnny being asked for by name, right, and summoned directly. And it doesn't matter what tool they use, what search bar they start with, they will eventually find you.
And my thought is once the AI models start moving into pay to play, well, we're going to see a whole bunch of data we've never seen before. Right now, a lot of the data we don't get access to. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They're going to start showing like searches and
The
other
customer
things.
reaction, though, see, if you know that the AI is lying to you, that the AI is a whore, that can be bought.
Oh, it's very clearly going to let you know it's an ad.
Well, okay, here's the thing. Why would you then ask, who do you think I should use?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but they're
I think
doing
that
it.
we're talking at this from different angles.
Yeah.
My angle is you want to go to the world of branded search.
Agreed.
And so let's move back in that direction of, we know that target audience was a sacred cow that needed killing, right? As we talked about in this chart in the previous episode. The other little thing we wanted to talk about on that as we move into the actual reality of how do you measure success and how do you protect yourself from the shifting sands of the online terrain and the marketing experience we're all navigating. First and foremost, you understand what reality is versus what is perceived as effective. So Nielsen released this in 2025, and Nielsen is as impeccable as they get. They've got the biggest data set out there. And what you're seeing on the left-hand side is what's generally the online version of experience. So social, search, online video, display ads, connected television. On the right-hand side, you're seeing out-of-home TV, podcast, print, and radio. And so everyone, as I talked about with the big X in the very first episode, is moving more of their money into these online spaces and less of their money into the older spaces, traditional media, et cetera. And the funny thing is, as we said, you can take a good thing too far. It is true that social and search are on the incline and things like radio are on the decline. But you take that assumption too far, and what you find, and when we talk about search here, is for those of you who are listening, it's the second highest in perceived effectiveness. And so it's the second tallest bar with 64 compared to the actual effectiveness of 32. And so weighted average ROI here in purple, you're looking at the average ROI as basically tied here at the bottom with CTV as the least effective. And so what everyone is spending all their money on right now, they're not spending it on traditional television. Everyone's super excited about connected television and the online version of TV, so streaming, Roku, all the rest.
And they're basically saying, dollar for dollar, the worst use of money is search and connected television.
And so the thing that everyone thinks is the prize, precisely because the auction gets driven to this exorbitant high, it no longer is the prize.
And then the very most effective, see, social media shows up as perceived most effective and is actually most effective. And then the least effective on the chart, the thing that ranks dead last, it shows perceived effectiveness, is radio. It says radio. No, everybody thinks radio's dead, radio's a dinosaur, but yet it is almost tied. It's just barely below social media. It's second place only to social media for actual effectiveness.
It's kicking the snot out of number 3.
It's in other words, so all of these things in between. So the very first one is actually accurate, which is social media, and perceived effectiveness is super high. Radio effectiveness is dead last, perceived effectiveness. But then the actual measured is radio is almost tied. It's number 2 for actual effectiveness, right behind social media.
And so it's interesting in that there's almost an inverse relationship, between what people think works and what actually works. And that's what we're here to try and address. And so moving into now what has been working, right? We're trying to go from the world of marketing kind of trends and averages and media observations into what we started with at the very beginning of the series, which is the lived experience of the business owners and what they're paying for their clicks and what they can expect out of it in return. And we said there's a better way to do it. And we were talking about going from unbranded search, plumber near me, to now branded search, Johnny's Magnificent Plumbing. So I've got a bunch of data that I can share on that. And we'll start with third parties, and then we'll share our own internal first-party data where we can talk about what we have observed with our clients. And so talking about the external, where was it? So here we are. So this is coming from Dream Data, and they are one of several different groups out there that had a big data set and crunched the numbers and returned the results of brand versus unbrand. We'll look at several different groups. But what they found was average spend on Google search, you're seeing non-brand was getting over 3/4 of the actual spend. So brand was getting a small portion of the ad budget, right? Kind of what we've been telling you. But in terms of return on ad spend, what actually happens, brand generated a 1,299% average return on ad spend, while non-branded terms generated a 68% return on ad spend.
So at 68%, so it didn't even return your ad spend.
Right.
It only returned not even 2/3 of your ad spend.
Right. So that was for their data set. And so the thing
the branded returned how much?
1,299%.
1,290 times. So it gave you 13 times what you spent as return on investment on branded keywords. And non-branded keywords, you didn't get your money back.
And so it comes back to what I just showed you before of people think search is the answer, right? That's what everyone thinks is really effective. And there's only so much brand you can get in front of.
Right.
And so if you don't know how to build a brand, if you don't know how to create branded search, then what do? You spend more money on counterproductive, non-profitable, non-branded search. And so if I have anything to say here, it's that non-branded search can, in the right hands. We've got Luis Castaneda and Viwick, and we've got some people who are still making it work, but my God, it's hard to make it work. You need someone really good to fight the headwinds of non-brand search, right? And so different data set. This is coming from Searchlight. Now they're looking at specifically the data-driven trades. So we've gone from a broad kind of data set into the trades, right? So plumbers, air conditioners, all of them. And so you're looking at blended Google ads. And so they're showing here that the customer acquisition cost is about $509. This was, I think, December of 2025. And so the closed return on ad spend was about 5.01 for Google Ads. Now, this is something you really need to pay attention to. If you're running Google Ads right now and you're not separating out the branded from the unbranded, then you are driving with your eyes closed.
I just want to repeat a number. The average customer acquisition cost is $509.82.
Right. And they've got a pretty decent data set. And kudos on them for releasing the data set. But this is blended. So it gets better and it gets worse. Unbranded, right, it gets worse. We said this is the negative return on ad spend. So closed return on ad spend here, they were saying, was a 3.24 for unbranded in HVAC and plumbing. Customer acquisition cost of $792.11. That's not an easy cost to swallow, right? No matter what business you're in. And so this notion of the average, the blended at 509, is disguising the weakness of the unbranded at $792. And so what you really have to do is separate out what percentage of your clicks and revenue are coming from branded search versus unbranded search. And so here's the key thing. I know we're running low on time. Branded Google ads, you're seeing customer acquisition cost of $130.98 with a closed return on ad spend of 19.34. So it is, in this case, the branded Google ads that are doing all the heavy lifting in this blended report to make it look like a reasonable investment of time and energy and money. But when you separate these things out, we'll see in our own set, this was a case study of a real company that we have on our site. We had the Service Titan data tied into the Google, tied into the website, tied into how profitable each call was. I won't bore you with the full play-by-play, but we had the exact same 3 cities. So you can no longer have a question of apples and oranges. The exact same 3 cities, the exact same company, and you had someone who was blending it and trying to report it all in one bucket, and they were telling the client, your Google ads are running great. Here's the average return on ad spend, and here's the ROI and all this stuff. And we were saying, phooey on that. We think that they're spending way too much money. You should not be spending that much money in these cities. And we forced them to break down, and it was a fight. But we eventually were able to separate the unbranded from the branded.
What it was is that we have 3 different partners that have access to the API, and one of them got this data from the Service Titan API and created this custom report. And so the other people never did do it for us. They refused.
So you did it by hook and crook.
So we basically did it ourselves. And he said, okay, found the data. We found these 3 cities. And so this is the same week in the same 3 cities where it's showing branded keyword return on investment versus unbranded keyword hard loss.
Right. And so in all 3 cities, you can see in City 1, unbranded keyword was a hard loss of $8,299.90. That same city, from the branded keywords, generated a gross profit of $49,480 So yeah, this is the same week. So same city, but the difference of the branded keywords and the unbranded keywords was enough. Brand was able to put unbranded on its back and carry it across the finish line.
Right.
And most of the companies that are reporting it blended either don't know the importance of the branded, or they don't care to disclose it if they're
Right.
not going to separate these two out. So in all three cities, you see tremendous ROI, 300%, 663% for the branded keywords, and you're breaking even or worse on the unbranded keywords in all three cities. So we'll talk about now a little bit broader data set. So we're saying city to city, exact same client, you really have to be paying attention to your unbranded keywords. And I'm not saying they don't work. I'm saying you have to work like the dickens to make them work. And you have to stop when you're plucking the fruit that's on the low-hanging branches. Don't let them get a ladder and scaffolding and pick the high branches, because that's where your ROI goes to hell in a handbasket.
Right. Exactly.
So, final thoughts. We looked at what Searchlight was talking about with their return on ad spend, right? So their branded was customer acquisition cost of $130.98 for the trade. Their closed return on ad spend was a 19.34. Now we'll put our cards on the table. This was something that Luis Castaneda and Vi Wickham had sent with us just for our own internal use, and I got their permission to share it, to educate Todd's people. And we're not putting this out there super widely, but if you're a friend of Todd's, you're a friend of mine. So home services clients, if you look at Google Ads search branded, you can see that a cost per booking is $23. So their return on ad spend is a 43. So we're still beating by a wide margin.
43 times the spend.
Right. So a 43 times return on ad spend. So we're beating by a wide margin the Searchlight average, because we're better at building brands than the average
Now look at
group
the
out
same,
there.
the search for non-branded.
Right. And so the non-branded search, in this case, they had a cost per booking of $323. Now, if you compare that to what they had in Searchlight for cost per booking, right, the Google unbranded, they has it as a customer acquisition cost of $792, cost per booking of $389. And so we are able to beat what these guys are doing on both the branded side and the unbranded side.
Right.
Because
But even though our unbranded is half of theirs, we're spending half as much money on the cost per booking. We're spending half as much to book a job with unbranded, but with branded, it's $23.
So here's where it would get interesting, and maybe this is something that we can give to Vi and Luis to add to it. This is really great. What would make it, for me, the next level is you take this, and now you take the total cost of being a Wizard client plus the marketing spend, and you layer it so that now what you see here is, yes, the branded keyword search is $23, but the true total cost of it is Y, right? It's not going to be $323. I'd be willing to bet it's, at most, it's double that at 43, but it's still going to be like a massive return.
yeah, I mean, it's not hard to do. This is close to what you were
Well, the
asking
reason
for.
why I'm saying this is that going back to episode 2, we were asking the question, how do we determine it? And if we're saying branded keywords is the way to do it, we can very easily get to a hard number that all the digital guys and all the metric guys want to see. It's like, hey, yeah, this isn't hard to answer. Bam, there's your answer. We got it.
No, I think that's exactly right. And so looking at this case study we talked about earlier, right, you can see how much they were spending in City 1, 2, and 3, and recognize that if you can eventually, to finally go back to the question of can you ride this ride, you can eventually pull back on your unbranded keywords. And that is the virtuous cycle of what we're trying to do. So I know we're going to close with this. If you have short-term sales activation, according to Binet and Field, as being less effective in the short term than, short-term sales activation wins. It dominates for the first 6 months, and then brand building only wins in the long run. The peril, and the thing that I want to emphasize to you is you cannot afford to turn off what's bringing in the leads today until the long-term brand building kicks in. So the thing that we always have to counsel a business owner on is, do you have enough runway to achieve liftoff? And so it is not a case where you turn off your unbranded keywords on day one and the branded keywords show up. You have to plant the seeds, and then you have to wait for harvest time. And so it'll be at the middle of the first year that the first tender little shoots.
It's absolute hell for several months.
Start
3 to
to
6
peek
months
through.
is just hell.
And so you need to partner with a company that's healthy enough to run both campaigns for a while. And if you're clear about the chickening out period and about the delayed return on investment and all the rest, that's the last reason why more companies don't do this.
Jake, let's summarize it like this. For most home service companies, unbranded keywords are an addiction, and they have to have those leads. They have to have those clicks to keep their nose above water. And it's always painful to kick an addiction. And so a lot of people don't have the strength. And I'm saying if you can't fund a mass media campaign on top of what you're currently doing that's bad, but it still has to be done because your mass media isn't going to kick in for a few months. And it's kind of like it can be 6 months. And even then, you're not throwing a party. It's toward the end of the first year that you start getting super excited. And so that first year is what separates the survivors from the shattered. And I'm saying, so we have to be super careful that we don't take somebody that's so weak, they can't stand the detox. See what I mean? And it's a really dangerous thing. You have to find somebody and go, look, because it does require you're planting an orchard, you have to wait for these roots to go into the ground, the tree to spring up and start bearing some fruit. And that doesn't happen overnight. But everybody thinks, well, now that I'm starting to do this, I can turn this other one off. And no, you can't. You can't, not right away. And so that transition period is why the first year of any new client is unbelievably hard. We work harder the first year than we will ever work in our life, ever. It's absolute misery for everyone for about a year. And if you survive that year, then you're dancing in the street and having a wonderful time. But it's hard.
Pushing the car uphill so that later you get to ride it downhill.
Yeah.
Okay, listeners, that is the last of our 4-part mini-series. It was fantastic to have Jake and Roy come in here and share with us. As I'm reflecting on this last episode, this is what's going through my mind. It's very clear that you as a listener, if you own a small business, need to have branded keywords as part of your data set. But here's the other thing that's also very clear. I'd be willing to bet that a lot of you are questioning whether or not the information that you're getting back from your marketing company is accurate. And I get it. It's not always in their best interest to speak it plainly to you. So, at the conclusion of this, here's my call to action. If you find yourself questioning your data, send me an email. Let's connect, and I bet I can help you.
You've been listening to Test Tube Todd Liles and the Wizard of Ads, where the bold win and the remarkable reign. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss a conversation. If you want a copy of the show notes or watch the ads from today's show, head over to toddliles.com/wizard. This episode is dedicated to the business owners who refuse to be ordinary.